held me spellbound in the night, dancing shadows and firelight. See how high she flies? She got the moon in her eyes, witchy woman. Raving hair and ruby lips, sparks fly from her fingertips. Echoed voices in the night. She's a restless spirit on an endless flight, witchy woman. Welcome to Cryptic Frequencies, a blog talk radio show dedicated to exploring the mysterious. I'm Grand Rapids ghost hunter and co-host Wayne Thomas. Please keep an open mind about things you might not easily believe as we delve deep into the obscure. Our guest is at least a gypsy woman. Is Esther Joy a witchy woman? Let's find out. But first, let's meet the resident witch of Cryptic Frequencies, the good witch of the North, co-host and producer, Mary Bassett.
Hi, everyone. I look forward to this episode. Kim?
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Kim Kolean, and I'm also the co-host with Wayne on the Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters podcast on WKTV and the Whole Picture podcast. I'm so happy to be here today.
Esther Joy, I've posed the question. I've posed the question, Esther. I know you're a gypsy woman.
I am. I am also a witchy woman for sure.
Woo! I was wondering.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, Hansel and Gretel, we got a couple kids that are missing. So I'm wondering, you don't live in a gingerbread house, do you? Tell us about yourself. I'm interested to catch up. I know you're busy. I know you go to school. I don't know how school's worked out, of course, with the pandemic. But I'm interested to hear how school's going, your pottery. I know you had at least one horse, and I'm thinking maybe you've expanded on that. So just before we get into the fact that you're a tarot card reader, and I know I want you to do my reading tonight, but we want to hear about just what you've been up to. Clear.
Great. Well, all right, cool. Well, I'm Esther Joy. I'm the tarot reader. I'm also an artist. And I have just recently founded a co-op for horses, which is called Happy Horse Co-op. And I have a pottery business, which is 1990, and that is an artist collective, which is a studio space that I'm creating to support other artists who can't afford to start their small business because of big equipment purchases. And so we just work together to create this space so that way everybody can kind of benefit from mutual working towards mutual goals.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, yes, I do have a horse. 3 weeks ago, I went out to reconnect with a friend of mine that I used to go out when I was a kid to go horseback riding, and a whole bunch of small world. One of my friends ended up knowing her. So it was just like, well, hey, small world, let's go out and reconnect. So I went, and over the course of that visit, I ended up getting really inspired, and I felt a very strong yes from my own soul, and apparently it was time for me to have a horse. So so that was wild. I've wanted a horse my whole life. Have always loved them. If you could, if you were weighing out wishes and prayers, I've probably wished and prayed for a horse more than anything else in my whole life.
Oh, wow.
Every day when I was a kid. Yeah. And so I was so inspired, and I've been just gushing about it because, little girl dreams coming true. And I ended up inspiring a whole group of my friends to go in together, and we bought 3 more horses. We actually ended up raising $1,000 in a day to rescue one of them from the kill pen. He was going to go and be dog food, and so we saved him, and now we have 4 horses in this Happy Horse Co-op, and it has been transforming into one of the most beautiful organic support systems that I've ever seen manifest. It's been just wonderful. Horses are just a wonderful, wonderful energy.
What a great story. You rescuing those horses. It's one thing to rescue a dog or cat or any sort of animal, but, a horse is just such a majestic animal.
My horse is named Rainbow because I'm also a hippie as well as a witchy woman. And he goes by Bo. And the horse that we rescued, his name was Flag, but he has since been renamed Lucky Gomez. And the other 2 are Nelly and Yoshi. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now, I told you I had
just
some
beautiful.
Yes,
That's a
I had
great
some
name.
weird experiences. Something about horses and me, and they always seem to give me the horse that no one else can ride. Yeah, and then they tell me like, don't get off of old Joe, he won't let you back on.
Oh,
Or they
no.
try to tell me, yeah, like your horse is supposed to lead. Sometimes the horses have other ideas at who's supposed to lead, let me tell you. My wife and I went, and yeah, like my horse is biting her horse in the ass
Oh, no.
the whole time. Yeah, I go, you know what?
Terrible.
Let's switch up. I don't care what they told us. Let's switch. Let the other horse lead. As soon as we did that, the horses were fine.
Oh, yep.
But yeah,
Yep.
I've had some crazy experiences as a kid too. I love horses.
Yeah.
That's
I'd love
exciting,
for you to come
Esther.
out and see my co-op. Yeah.
I know. You were asking for volunteers to help clean stables.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and we'll take all the help we can get. It's transformed so wonderfully that at this point we have sponsors. We have whole groups of people that even though they're not buying in and becoming co-owners, they're so happy to contribute, and especially to be able to come out and bring your kids and be able to experience that for yourself. One of my good friends, she came out for the first time, and she actually got to ride a horse for the first time in her life, and that it's just exciting.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So
Your kids
Esther,
won't
this is
forget
Kim. Is that some place we can take our family to go horse riding then?
Oh, absolutely.
No kidding.
Yep. We've got the 4
Where is
horses,
this
so we can't
located?
do large groups, but it is in Coopersville. It's on
that's
Cleveland,
close
right
by.
between Coopersville and Marne. Yeah, it's 10 minutes from my house. It's practically dreamy.
So how do we make an appointment to come ride your horses?
Well, that for now, I guess you'd have to just reach out to me on Facebook, or you're welcome to email me at esthergish14@gmail.com, and I can absolutely set something up.
That's
it's
wonderful.
still pretty new, so I haven't even got to that part yet.
Okay.
But you're welcome to reach out, and I'd love to have you come out and meet them, and then I'll get a little bit more organized when it comes to setting up appointments for outside parties, because I'd love to start having regular events.
Yeah, how exciting is that?
That's real cool.
Now, are you still doing Tarot Tuesday? I don't think you are, right?
No, I'm not right now because of the COVID-19. There's been so much stuff going on. I'll still do an appointment reading, and then we can wear our masks or stay farther apart. Or I'm also doing them over the phone and through video chat.
Okay, so you're staying busy.
Yeah.
How about, have you been in touch with our mutual friend Molly?
I have. She's actually going to be one of the co-moms to to Lucky Gomez, the horse that we rescued.
Oh,
and
okay.
She's going to be coming out with her daughters on a regular basis. She's also involved in my art business as well.
Yeah, your pottery is so cool. Now, have you added several items? Because I had seen some of the stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I have. I've got. I'm working on filling up a kiln load right now. I had ordered this great big fancy pottery wheel, and because of the pandemic, all of the manufacturers got way slowed down. So that's been my excuse to procrastinate, I guess. But now I just found out that I don't get that until the end of August, so I guess I don't have that as a crutch anymore. So I've been just working on doing hand building, and I have this kick wheel that I use instead.
So often the paranormal runs in the family, but apparently your artistic qualities also run in the family.
Yes, it does. I'm from a whole family of artists. Both my parents are artistic, and I'm one of 10 kids, and we all have artistic genes.
Your dad's working with you, or using some of his equipment, right?
Yeah, I actually got my kiln from my dad, and he invested in letting me buy that on a payment plan, so that way he's contributing as well. And he's also, once I get it set up to do like art therapy workshops or art classes, he's going to be helping me with teaching them as well.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Very nice. Keep it in the family like that.
Yeah, it's real cool.
Yeah. Now, I think we should talk tarot, because that's why we got you here, I think, more than anything. And the last time you were on WKTV podcast, you did a reading for Kim.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened was the two most positive cards in the deck came up. And you could talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The two cards that came up for Kim were the Sun, which is it's the number one most positive. It's like a light that just kind of gleams down and is the biggest yes, the biggest encourager, and the biggest inspiration and manifester. So it's a giant positive note to the whole reading. If that shows up in any reading, that suggests that anything that it's talking about is on a positive note. And then the second card that showed up for Kim was the Star, which is the Star of Hope. And that is just a light, again, coming down saying, hey, it's going to be okay. And whatever situations that you're going through, you're going to figure it out and it's going to work out just fine.
I think it was a message of hope. Kim, what did you get out of that reading?
Well, it's funny because a lot of things have happened recently in my life that I need to have some hope right now, and I'm being tested for my cancer that potentially is coming back. So I've got a lot of things going on this week. I tried to get a bone marrow biopsy last week. That was failed. So I'm having some PET scans and another bone marrow biopsy this week. So I'm hoping that tarot card reading is really going to point the sun towards me and the stars towards me.
Yeah, definitely.
This is just something that hopefully is going to turn out as a good situation.
Yeah, hopefully, right. Best of luck with that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's how many cards in the tarot deck, and then for those two cards to come up?
There are 78 cards in the tarot deck, and that's divided into two sides, the major and the minor arcana. The minor are more descriptive cards, and the major arcana are the more archetypal cards. And those two are from the majors, and those are kind of like when they show up in a reading, it's kind of like if the cards were going to be shouting or speaking in all caps, those are the ones speaking in all caps.
Now, one group trumps the other group, right?
Sort of, yeah. The major arcana are more powerful when it comes to when they're speaking, they speak with a stronger message. But that doesn't mean that the minor are necessarily less important. They're just a little bit more descriptive. So that helps you kind of pinpoint the details.
And now you talked about some positive cards. Are there negative cards?
Yes. It's not so much negative as in predicting negative things for your life, but they're more negative in the sense of they talk about certain struggles that you're going through, or challenges, or I call them stress cards. And that's just kind of bringing to attention the fact that you're going through stuff that's got you in a more agitated or strained state. For the major cards, one of the more stressful cards would be the Tower. And that one is talking about how when you have things that are built on foundations that are not solid, it's really important for you to deconstruct that stuff yourself before they come tumbling down around you. And that's just talking about the need to kind of reevaluate your core beliefs or your core feelings about situations you're going through and decide if that's really how you feel and if that's really what you want to believe. Another stress card would be like the Ten of Swords, where that's swords in general are talking about work or trials or verbal communication. And so the Ten of Swords would be talking about how, like, tens are talking about like the accumulated state of something where you've been pushing it through for so long, and you're finally at that point where it's at the very peak of its energy and completion. And so with the swords in there, that would be like I've been just like beating my head against the wall trying to make this work, and it's still not working for me.
Interesting. Yeah, for swords, I have the element is air. Each one has its own element. And I have communication, truth, intellect, and thoughts. And
it's very analytical.
And then we should probably just break down the rest of them, because now you deal with what, cups, pentacles, swords, and wands, the four suits.
Yep.
And
they sometimes show up as different things in different decks, but that's the general breakdown.
Right. They can be called different things. And the older decks are you have different names for the same thing.
Yeah.
Coins are called pentacles or disc, and batons can be called wands, rods, or staves.
Yep.
And then what deck do you use?
I use the Cosmic Tarot deck when I'm doing my general reading. And then I also have the Salvador Dali Surrealism deck, but that one I'm still learning how to read it without having to read the book. So that one, it's kind of, it's like the next level up for where I'm going in my studies. And it's a little, the deck I use, the Cosmic Tarot deck, it's very tuned in to how I approach the world. So it's very, very gentle, very supportive, very encouraging. And the Salvador Dali deck is a little more to the point. And so it's a little more direct.
Yours is the modern deck that you're using.
Yes.
Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles.
Yep. I've used other decks before, and this one I like a lot.
I read that the Rider-Waite, I believe,
yes.
deck is for like beginners.
Yep, that's the classic tarot deck.
There's so really much to know.
Yeah,
so much to learn.
It's a really fascinating thing.
Yeah, let's go down. You did Swords. Let's do Cups. You know, Cups I got emotions, creativity, intuition, relationships, heart, and the element is water. Pentacles is the earth is the element. It's about material wealth, money, career, manifestations. Okay, Wands are the elements fire. And then
so Wands are fire, so that's talking about creativity, passion, motivation, and drive. Also talking about projects or work-related things, but usually that's more of like a creative side as well. Very manifesting, very, very powerful.
And then there's court cards.
Yes, yep. Court cards are face cards. Those ones show up in every suit, and they're usually talking about people. And so in mine, I've got it with a king, a queen, a prince, and a princess. But in like the Rider-Waite deck, it's usually a king, a queen, a knight, and a knave or a page. And so in mine, it talks more about people. So king's usually referring to a man, queen's referring to a woman, usually older, so adults. And then for my deck, I have princes and princesses. So that's usually talking about younger men or women, or it can also be talking about masculine or feminine traits of the person that you're reading for. And in the other decks that have the knights and the pages, those are talking about events or like the way that situations come about.
Now I read each card has a number and each number has a meaning. And so is it a Roman numeral number?
Yeah.
And then
those are the major arcana separated that way.
So there's a relationship between tarot and numerology.
Yes, absolutely. Also astrology.
Right, astrology. And so you study certain numbers, or just like, are you concerned with 1 through 10, or I mean, what numbers are important to you?
For me, I don't study
0
numerology
through 21?
very much myself. Yeah, it's 0 through 22 for these ones, and it's definitely related to, like, you can see the numbers when it comes to, so like 8s or 4s are very stable numbers, whereas 5s and 3s, odd numbers, tend to be talking about a little bit more, well, I don't know the right word to say, not quite agitated subjects, but it's a different kind of energy. And so like 3 is a very stable number. That's the Holy Trinity. There's a whole bunch of stuff with that, but I haven't studied the numerology of it as much, unless it's when it comes to like relations of other cards.
Now,
so
go ahead. When you flip up one of those court cards, now you've got to read into it more, because it's not the number telling you what the message is.
Yep, that's exactly right. And for me at this point, because I've been studying the tarot for over 10 years now. So at this point, I've got enough of a relationship with the individual cards that I can you can even use like a regular deck of playing cards. If you know the different suits and the different numbers approximately, you can do a tarot reading just with those. And so that's just a matter of learning which ones go where, which I can't think of right off the top of my head, but it's very fascinating to look into.
What I was wondering, would I be able to tell the difference in the suits? I mean, I can tell in a poker deck, I know the difference between a diamond and a heart, a club and a spade. Would I be able to tell the different suits?
Yeah, probably. Let me. You can come back to that in a second, and I can look that up right now to make sure I've got them right.
But I think it says it on the card itself, doesn't it? Whether it's a pentacle or
for playing cards or for the tarot cards.
The tarot cards. Would I be able to recognize those suits? Is it written right on them? Oh,
yep,
okay.
Absolutely. It's written right on them, and if some decks they don't have the words written on them, but the images show you which ones they're talking about. So if it's got like the 8 of Pentacles, the image will have whatever deck you're using. You'll be able to count the coins to be able to see that it's the 8. And same goes for if it's a cup or a wand or a sword, you'll be able to see in the images what suit and what number.
In my notes, I have one of the worst cards is the 5 of Pentacles because it's indicating rough times ahead.
It is. It's not always talking about rough times ahead. It's usually talking about a situation where you are going to need help. And it encourages you to seek help from the people around you if you need it. And also it can talk about, depending on the cards around it, it can talk about feeling helpless and just needing to seek out that support because you don't feel it.
Here's something I need you to explain.
Yeah.
The Fool card, what I read was it's one of the most valuable cards when it comes to tarot games. Tarot games, what is that?
I don't even know. I've never played any tarot games.
Oh, yeah. It says the Fool card is one of the most valuable cards.
The Fool card is it's a good card to get because it talks a lot about new beginnings and about being able to start looking at the world through a new set of eyes every day. So it really talks about the importance of being present and of being able to kind of weigh out the things in front of you to help you make the decision on which choice you're going to make.
Now, there's a Devil card, right?
Yep. The Devil card, that one shows up differently for different readers. For me, when that one shows up, that's usually talking about a lot of inner conflict. And so it's talking about like, hey, I talk about it like it's the should card, where you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself because of something that you feel like you should do, but you don't actually feel inspired to do it. And so when that happens with people and they're operating with this kind of dual nature because of not listening to that part of yourself that's saying, I don't actually want that. Also, it can sometimes refer to more carnal stuff where like the more hedonistic side of human nature, and there's a lot of stigma that comes with that as well, which encourages that kind of negative look.
Is there an opposite of the Devil card? Like, is there an Angel card?
That would probably be the Star. There's also another card that's very close to the Star that's called Temperance, and that's talking about the importance of balance in nature and being able to be patient.
Well, there's a lot to know when it comes to tarot. Yeah. And then I'm wondering how you flip the cards, because apparently it makes a difference, because if a card lands upside down, it's a whole different meaning than if it lands the right side up.
I flip upright usually. What I often do, though, is I'll start it upright just because when you start getting reversed, I do that usually not for first-time readers unless I give them the cards to shuffle and they shuffle it in a way that then it gets flipped. Then I read them how they come up for me. Same thing.
Are you saying you're saying you lay them out face up? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I usually do. If I'm reading for myself, then I don't worry about that so much. In my experience, a lot of people have had really negative experiences sometimes with readings where it's easy to take, here's the meaning of this good card, and if you flip it upside down, then it means the opposite, and that's not necessarily the case. Usually it just means that there's a different way of looking at it. Sometimes it does have a negative connotation. But more often, when I read, more often that experience is more as a sense of resistance, to where there's something that's kind of blocking you pertaining to that particular card. But that's something that every reader does that a little differently.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then, like I say, I didn't know if you flipped them over from top to bottom, left to right.
For me, I'm not as particular about that. I like to kind of, it depends on the day, it depends on the shuffle, it depends on the person I'm reading for. Usually I'll lay them out face down and then I'll flip them left to right.
Okay.
But that varies. It's not something that I personally take very seriously. Not that it's not serious if it's something that you feel serious about. But for me personally, I have a more relaxed approach.
But are you consistent? I mean, you start one way, you finish that way?
Yes, usually.
Okay. And then
it might not be every reading, but it's definitely throughout any individual reading, yes.
Okay, right. And then you answered one of my questions. I wondered if you read yourself.
I do, yeah. Sometimes at this point, I've gotten it to where I can kind of tell what it's saying before I flip the cards out, and then they come out more as a confirmation of what I was already kind of receiving.
Oh, yeah.
But I definitely do, yes. Half the time, they kind of turn into they get a little smart alecky.
The cards
so
too?
Yeah. And usually, that could be interpreted as, your own personal sense of humor, but in my experience, the universe has a pretty interesting sense of humor. And so sometimes you'll be thinking about something and it'll pop up a card that's just like, oh, yeah, don't say. Or I'm working on it, I swear.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
and then
it's
you
fun.
you use psychic ability to help interpret the cards.
I do.
Because you have abilities.
Yep, I do. I have a couple different ones. When I'm doing my tarot reading, I'm using a little bit of clairvoyance, and I'm using a little bit of clairsentience, which is that clear knowing. And for the tarot, like it shows up differently depending on which person I'm interacting with. So I don't necessarily see things as like vivid images. It'll just be kind of an impression, or like a, oh, well, here's just this kind of split thought of water pouring into a cup. Or it looks like a bunch of flowers on the side of the road. So it'll come as like a flash image, which that has taken me years to get the resistance out of the way, because I used to second guess myself so much when it was happening that it's just like, well, but that's just my imagination. And the more I've cultivated it, the more I've seen that happens very specifically, and it happens very much when I'm working with people in this sense. So when I'm reading cards for them, like all of the cards have their own individual meanings, but oftentimes I've had situations where I'll flip a card and it's completely not what I think it's talking about, but it will directly relate to something that that person has experienced or is going through.
I also had under cups that feminine aspect of God, the mother.
Yeah. Yep.
Nature.
Definitely. Water is a very feminine energy. That's talking about that emotion again, where the divine feminine is focusing on that softness and on the fluidity and flexibility, and being tuned into those emotions and to your intuition. It's very synced up with the moon, which is also very feminine.
I'm hyped up here. And then do you lay the cards out in a diamond pattern?
Usually my go-to when I'm doing readings is a Celtic cross. It's a 10-card spread that starts as it's 6 cards making a cross and then 4 going up the side. But if I'm doing a reading for like a close friend, then sometimes I don't even do a specific spread, or I'll start with the Celtic cross, but then I'll end up flipping other cards kind of in relation to the cards that are already on the spread, and then it kind of goes off. I've had readings before where I ended up reading through the entire deck, and it turns into almost like a conversation, using the cards that end up validating or confirming or directing that conversation.
Is it dealt with career to the left, finance to the right, romance to the top, and health and happiness to the bottom? Is that?
Not me specifically, but it can be. That's something that's really cool about the tarot, is that you can make that spread be anything that you want. You can go through and design your own spread if you want to, depending on whatever specific questions that you have, or like a specific situation. I know a lot of people who do like a yearly zodiac spread where they read one card for every month of the year. And then you can set it up to where here's the finance, here's the relationship, here's the work, that kind of a thing. And it's not specific to the spread usually. That's just, if that's what you want to do, then you can find a spread that does that. But the particular placement, in my experience, it's not super important. As long as you know what that card is representing, then where you put it in the spread, you'll be able to feel if it's the right flow. So the Celtic cross that I use, the first card is representing you and what's on your mind right now, and then it gets laid over in a cross, and that's kind of what's crossing you, what's on your mind, but what's kind of restricting your energy, what's the stuff that's preoccupying you on the surface. And then underneath that is like the root of the question, or sometimes it can be interpreted as like the distant past. And then to the left is the near past, I'm sorry. Above is what's going on right now. To the right is going forward. And then coming up the side is the card that's kind of giving you clarity on the basis of the question. And then another card that reflects a little bit more insight onto the basis of the question. And then the third going up is hopes and fears. And then the fourth one is like the outcome or the projected future card.
Okay. So you kind of know where you fall in that timeline.
Yeah. It helps to line up your spreads in a way that you're kind of same way that you would ask a question and then know how that's going to lead you into the next question. That's a really helpful way of laying out a spread, so that way you don't have to keep bouncing around. But you can get extra clarity anytime.
What do most people want to know about?
Relationships.
Oh. Love life,
hands down.
Well, we're not doing love life. We can skip love life for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no love life, so we don't have to waste our time with that. I'm hopelessly in love with my wife. There's no doubt about it.
Aww.
Yeah, and can you break this down to two basic types of readings, depending on what the people are looking for? And then there are two different ways you can go.
Yes.
And then we've really broke this down, I think, pretty good. I mean, pretty basic, more so than what we ever have on a show. So, I mean, if we want to get into my reading, I guess, unless there's more stuff that you want to bring out about tarot before we get into it.
Well, I guess before we get into it, I would just like to remind you that with tarot and with anything spiritual or paranormal, when it comes to people teaching you things about yourself, it's always important to kind of have your inner skeptic aware and watching. So if something resonates with you, that's wonderful. Take it with you and grow from it as much as you can. But if something doesn't resonate, don't beat yourself up or don't kind of let yourself worry about it. Just don't take it home with you. Because people are fallible. Yeah, and that's one of those, hey, if it hits, that's great, and that's wonderful, because the more open you are, the more you're going to get from it. But if it doesn't, and it's just like, that doesn't make any sense, then it's just like, then your reader's probably just having a bad day, and that happens. So it's never something to worry about. I've had people come across my table that were like, well, I was in New Orleans, and this person said I was going to die in 5 years, and all of this stuff, and that's no good. That's not the proper way to read for people, unless you get a really strong, clear, hey, warning, you need to be careful. But I have never had something like that happen, and I've been doing this for a decade now.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, how do you give somebody like bad, terrible news? You see it in the cards.
Yeah, and I don't like reading for the future is tricky because the future changes all the time, and so it's like I can read the future timeline that you're on right now and tell you stuff that's possible, but that whole future timeline can change in the course of a couple minutes.
Yeah, I have to believe there's so many variables when it comes to the future, so many different possibilities.
Yep. I don't read the future usually unless I'm trying to help somebody figure out a decision that they have to make. I like to read more for the present to give you better insight onto what's going on and what's kind of, a lot of the time it's more what's impeding you from being able to see your own future for how you want it to be.
Okay. I like that explanation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ready. I'm ready if you are.
I am. So I'm going to shuffle these one more time, and I'm going to cut them, and I'm going to have you just pick left or right. So whenever you're ready.
Right.
So now
so you just cut the deck, and so, yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay. So, and now for these, I'm going to read them, but if there's anything that you want more clarity on, either during the reading or after the reading, feel free to ask me questions, and then we can go into it more, especially if something doesn't quite make sense yet.
Okay.
Then definitely ask all the questions. I love when people want to go deeper because that gives you more peace. All right. So first things first, we have a lot of pentacles. We have 1, 2, 3 pentacles here, and then we've got 1, 2, 3 of the major arcana cards as well. So first things first is here's you, and this is the Prince of Pentacles. And the Prince of Pentacles, like we were talking before, it's an earth sign. So it's very, very strongly talking about stability and being very grounded and very, with this particular card, it shows a young man and he's got his arms folded across his chest. So this would suggest that you are capable of being very stubborn.
Is it the sixth,
Prince,
did you say?
The Prince of Pentacles. Yep. And so this is talking about how you're very pragmatic in your view. And so you see things, you trust your guidance and your insight, and you're very good at asking questions and not taking things right off the bat for truth. So your inner skeptic is very strong, and that's a very good thing. So crossing the Prince of Pentacles, we have the Two of Pentacles. And that shows a man who is kind of walking across these plates on the water. And the Two of Pentacles is talking about how you are engaged in an endeavor that is requiring you to kind of have to take it one step at a time. And it's a tricky process because it requires you to maintain that balance. But this card encourages you that you're doing better than you give yourself credit. And you worry about, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? What am I going to do about it? And this is like, hey, you're already doing it, and you're doing it better than you think.
That's interesting.
So the basis of this question, which goes right underneath, is the Tower, which we just talked about earlier. So the Tower is talking about that need to deconstruct core beliefs that don't serve you anymore, and to go through and be really honest in identifying things that you've got kind of acquired into your belief system that are things that are not benefiting you. So core beliefs that involve, like believing that you're not good enough for any reason, or something to do with, it's like the idea that you have to do work in order to still be valuable.
I might have to clean out my closet, throw some things away.
It's a good practice. And the cool thing about the Tower is that, it's talking about, hey, you're in the process of, processing and deconstructing these beliefs, that's a lot of emotional work to go through and to look at yourself and look at how you see the world and decide what parts you want to change because you want them to feel better. And the Tower is cool because when you do that deconstruction yourself, you get to save the bricks and build it back up how you want to.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. So in your recent past, we have the Princess of Cups. And that would suggest, that's usually talking about a younger woman. It also could be talking about a more feminine aspect of yourself. And with the younger cards, unless you have a daughter, it could be talking about Brenda, but it kind of feels more like it's talking about how you're coming to a place where you're starting to feel things differently. And the Princess of Cups is talking about how you feel things and you kind of see stuff coming. And sometimes you'll talk about it to somebody, but they don't believe you until they're like, oh, man, I should have listened. And it's just kind of like, well, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I kind of felt like that was coming, And with that Princess of Cups, this would suggest that you're stepping into a place of emotional softness that is kind of new for you. And so going on now, we have the Three of Pentacles. And the Three of Pentacles is the Apprentice card. This is talking about the hard work that you do. This is the do the work card. This is like, hey, I see the goal that I want. I see what I want to get to and what I want to achieve on the way. And now I just got to do the groundwork. I got to go and I got to practice and I got to practice and I got to tune those senses to put myself into that place that I want to be. And with the Pentacles, again, this is talking about like material world. This is talking about something that's going to directly impact your well-being and quality of life.
Yeah,
a lot
I know.
Of times, yeah, good.
That material world keeps coming up. It came up with when we had the numerologist on there too, and money.
Yeah.
And I'm a hippie like you. I haven't really.
Yeah.
I care more about happiness than money.
Yeah,
so I'm a little bit confused with that when that comes up. Maybe I like money more than I'm giving myself credit for.
Well, money oftentimes represents security, and so it's for Pentacles, like it's money, but it's more safety and security for me. Like that's just like that's making sure that your needs are met, and that doesn't always have to be through money. Money for me is not my main motivator either. And so when that card shows up, that's the card that's like I'm stabilizing my life, whether that's financially or through work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that explanation. That makes sense to me.
Good. All right. So going forward, and this is the going into the future space, this is the Four of Swords. And the Four of Swords is talking about making sure that you pay attention to when you need to rest. The Four of Swords is talking about take the break because, the picture is four swords on a rug, and there's a group of men that are in the desert in an oasis. So there's some trees in the background, and they're talking, this is the rest that you must take in order to take the steps that you want to go. And this is one of those, if you don't take your breaks when you need them, this is the card that's going to say, well, then we're going to make you take a break. So it's important to listen when you feel exhausted or when you're feeling kind of overextended, that you allow yourself to ease up, especially because you're in the Three of Pentacles phase right now, which is the work phase. So it's like you're working hard. So when you feel that go from motivated to now stressful, make sure you ease back on that gas pedal.
Okay, got that. Point taken.
Okay. Good. It's important. And it's one of those, the Four of Swords, it's not like, oh, well, you're going to get laid up and something's going to make you rest. It's more of the, hey, if you don't listen now and learn how to listen to that when it pops up, then it starts getting louder. So then, if you don't listen and you learn, if you kind of train yourself to ignore those sensors when they're saying, hey, you're getting exhausted, then it starts getting louder, and then that turns into situations that end up being harder for you to recover from.
Okay.
Okay, so coming back down, and we're going to that basis of the question, which is that tower, and that's talking about how you're kind of going through and really being very self-aware in looking through your beliefs and your personal, motivations. And the card influencing that is the World, which is a really good card. The World is talking about the accumulation of your entire spiritual journey. This is, I've gone through all of this work. I've done all of this, rather exhausting spiritual and emotional labor of going through and being very present and being very honest and being very accountable to myself. And the World is talking about all of that work is paying off. All of that work is paying off. This is the World, and that's the last card of the Major Arcana. And this is the accumulation of everything you're learning. This is the full realization of all of your dreams and goals when it comes to what you want from that spiritual process. And this is like hey, your work is paying off. Your work is paying off. You're headed in the direction where you're going to be able to hit. This is like the World is yours. You've paid it off. You're in a spot now where you've tuned yourself to be able to see the situations coming at you to where things don't overwhelm you anymore because you saw them coming. So you're prepared to handle it as it comes. And it changes from being like a hard labor of, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just like trying to keep up, to once the World comes through, then it's just like, oh, hey, no, I've learned about that. I know how to do it.
Well, I am communicating with all the corners of the world, seems like lately, to the point where Facebook is putting me on timeout all the time. I'm sharing too much. Yeah, I know. Right.
That's real cool, because that's definitely talking about that too. Influencing the World, we have the King of Cups. And the King of Cups is talking about kind of how before you're coming into this new emotional place where you're starting to listen to your feelings differently and honor them. The King of Cups is talking about this king or this man. He's very tuned into his emotions, and that puts him in a place where he can tune into people from across the room or across the world, and be able to feel what they're feeling and be able to kind of give them that comfort or that guidance when they need it. And also talks about how your feelings are so tuned that you're right. When you get feelings off of people and you get those vibes, that you're very likely completely correct.
Well, I do like I like to kind of feel people out, and that's why if we're in a room, it's a lot easier when you're face to face or together in a room to feel people.
Yep, definitely.
Kim knows that too, and I think Mary too. I mean, when we're in the studio, it's a little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I like it when you and I get on the same page, Wayne, and we can look at each other and we're thinking the same thing. Well, and sometimes we'll get like chicken skin together.
Right. Well, you had the exact same notes I had in the last podcast, but you gave all the stats, and so I just kind of reaffirmed them after you put them all out there. So that was great.
I know.
So how much more reading we got left?
I got 2 cards left.
Okay, cool.
So this one is the Hopes and Fears card, and this would be the Fears card. This shows up as the 8 of Cups. And the 8 of Cups is talking about, it's not quite necessarily a feeling of depression, but it's just a little bit of like, well, things are okay. It's not all bad, but it's not all good. And when it comes to situations like that, it's very important what you decide to put your focus into, because we're in a world where it is not all good or all bad. And so if you focus on the negative, it's easy to get sucked in and pulled into that thought process. But if you focus on the positive of the situations that you have, then that pulls you into being able to experience and manifest more positive experiences.
Well, Mary's brought a lot of light back into my life just doing this show.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I was really down. I mean, I was ready just to say, you know what, if I'm going to get out of it, now's the time.
Oh, well, I'm glad you did.
I was at that point, so I mean, she pulled me out of that darkness, so a lot of credit to Mary. Yeah. Well, one more card to go.
Yep. One more card going forward, and we have the Devil. So that's the card that's talking about the shoulds again. And that's talking about making sure that when you start feeling that really strong weight of responsibility, especially when it's stuff that doesn't feel very good, then it's making sure that you're looking at that with a very critical thinking eye. So if stuff comes up and it's just like all of a sudden out of nowhere you're getting hit with this wave of, well, shoot, I need to be working on that, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I shouldn't think that, or I shouldn't feel this way. Make sure anytime should pops up in your mind that you pause a second and look at that, because oftentimes should turns into a very self-abusive word. And
I need to reflect on that.
Yeah, it's something that it's kind of sneaky, because it often presents itself as being in line with your morals and your ethics and your work ethics. And that's really tied tightly to that tower of when that pops up. And you can feel when something is not aligned with your higher self, because it makes your heart sink a little. And so when you're thinking about something that you should be doing and you feel your heart going down, then that's a very important moment for you to be able to look at it. It's an opportunity, really, to go through and evaluate that core belief, because ultimately, when it's a heart-sinking belief, it ends up coming down to where the root of it has to do with believing that if you don't perform to that level, that you're not as worthy and you're not as valuable and you're not as important. And so the devil is talking about pay attention.
I took notes on all that stuff, so
good.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's my very first reading. I've watched everybody else get them, but that's my very first one. I loved it. So that's nice.
Glad.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh, and my pleasure, and I'm so glad you asked me to.
Yeah, let's move on to upcoming and ongoing events. Now, have you got anything planned for Halloween this year?
Well, I don't know. I had that macabre event again, but I don't know if that's going to be going just because of the way everything's going with the pandemic. So for now, I don't. I just have I have my horse co-op. Feel free to reach out. And otherwise, nothing on the books, but I'll keep you posted.
You're selling poetry online?
No, not specifically.
Not poetry,
I sometimes
pottery.
Oh, pottery, yes. Yep, that pops up every now and again. I'm going to be working on creating a website that I can link my artwork, and then also the other artists that are working through my studios as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. I'm going to watch for that. All right. Now, we do have the Mid-Michigan Paranormal Convention, and I've seen they put a list out of more people, but some of our friends are going to be there November 8th in Flint, Michigan. Okay, and then Chatan's going to be there. Chatan Noir is going to be out there at the Mid-Michigan Paranormal Convention. Kathleen Tenson is going to be out there, some of our friends. And then we have WKTV podcast that we're doing, and we're kind of excited about the guest that's going to be coming on. Kim, your friend.
Yeah, her name is Nicole Beauchamp. It's Beauchamp, and she is the author of a new book that's coming out on September 14th. It's called Haunted Bay City, Michigan. It's available for pre-order right now through Amazon and bookdepository.com. She's also the founder of the Tri-City Ghost Hunter Society. She's doing a free event, which is a book release party at the Masonic Temple in Bay City, Michigan on September 18 from 5 to 9. So for a fee, there's going to be psychics and vendors there. And they're also accepting donations, but that's not necessary. So September 18 is going to be her book release party. And then on September 23, we are going to be welcoming Nicole to our podcast for the Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters.
Right. Haunted Bay City, Michigan is the book, and Tri-City Ghost Hunters is her team. So we're real excited about that.
Yeah.
Let's move right into the final thought. And then I have 3 very smart people that I'm talking to right now. So we'll see if you guys can get this or not.
Oh, boy.
It's a quote that I'm going to read. Yeah, let's see. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So I want you guys to discuss that. If you know where that came from, just go ahead and tell me.
Not it for me.
I don't know.
It sounds like
definitely agree
something
with
that
it.
would be related to your chakras to me, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
No guesses, huh? Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I think it's a great message. All right, I'm going to give you a couple more quotes and see if you can narrow it down.
Oh, boy.
Injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere. Or injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That was another quote by the same person. Still no guesses. All right,
No.
This one here was going to narrow it down. Esther's a student here, so
Don't put me
she's
on
got
blast like that.
Oh, boy.
She's been studying a lot harder than the rest of us. All
Not
right.
necessarily in
You got
all
like
of
10
those
seconds. Hurry up.
Yeah.
A riot is the language of the unheard.
Yep, Martin Luther King Jr.
That's it. So that's a
Good
message.
call, Kim.
All those quotes are great messages, and I think it's, even though it was back in the 60s, it's really relevant today. So darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that, and only love can drive out hate. So that's the message. That's our final thought, and that's the message. This is another great show. I love that reading.
I do too.
I'm so glad, and I'm so thankful for you guys having me on.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be over there shoveling horse manure.
You don't
with
have to shovel. You could just come out and visit anytime. You don't gotta work.
That I could like to do though.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Maybe you and I have to go ride horses, Wayne.
That
I know.
sounds good.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you've got your horse, and then now you've moved on and rescuing other horses. How cool is that?
Very cool.
Now all my friends get horses too.
Yeah, right. You're like Oprah of the horse world. You get a horse, you get a horse.
Right. It's been great. Well, I'm so glad to have talked with you guys.
Yeah, nice show. Appreciate it.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Esther.
Yeah, thank you.